Daniel stepped out of the small bus and looked around the wide desert land that stretched in all directions. The wind carried grains of sand that brushed against his arms, and the afternoon sun hung high like a fiery lamp in the sky. He held his backpack tightly, trying to calm his nerves. He had come a long way from the city where buildings touched the clouds and streets were always filled with noise. Now he was standing in a quiet, open world where every sound felt clearer and every movement seemed meaningful. He had arrived with a simple purpose: to learn about the community that lived here, understand their history, and record it for his research project. He loved history since childhood, and stories of old traditions fascinated him. When his university offered him a chance to visit this remote settlement, he accepted immediately. He imagined learning amazing things and meeting interesting people. But as he looked around now, he realized he knew almost nothing about how this community lived or what rules they followed. That thought made his heart beat faster. As he walked toward the village entrance, he noticed the houses built from clay and wood, blending naturally with the surrounding land. A few children played near a well, their laughter rising in the air. Some older villagers sat under a shaded tree, talking quietly. Everyone seemed comfortable, as if they had lived the same peaceful life for many years. Daniel tried to smile warmly at the people he passed, but some of them only stared with curiosity. A few nodded politely. He knew he must look strange to them. His clothes, his glasses, even the way he walked felt different in this place. He tried not to feel awkward. Then his eyes fell on 3 young women standing near a small hut. They looked around his age, maybe a little younger. They were talking with each other. But when they noticed him, they suddenly stopped. For a moment, they exchanged glances, and then all 3 broke into soft laughter. Their laughter was not cruel, but it made Daniel feel more aware of his unfamiliar appearance. They covered their mouths slightly, trying not to be rude, but they could not hide their amusement. Their names, he would soon learn, were Leah, Amara, and Tahia. They had grown up together in the village, sharing almost everything: stories, dreams, and the simple joy of everyday life. They were known as cheerful and playful, always finding reasons to smile, even during hard times. And now, seeing a stranger walking awkwardly with his heavy backpack gave them another reason to laugh. Daniel felt his ears grow warm, but he forced a smile. He didn't know why they were laughing, but he assumed he must look unusual to them. Maybe his shoes were too clean, or his walk too clumsy. He didn't want to start his visit by feeling embarrassed, so he kept moving forward. He approached the village center, where he saw a tall man with gray hair tied behind his head. His posture was firm, but his eyes were calm and observant. This was Elder Nohin, the respected leader of the community. Daniel had read about him in the documents he was given before coming here. The elder was known for his wisdom and deep knowledge of the community's traditions. When Daniel introduced himself, Elder Nohin listened patiently, nodding once in a while. The elder's voice was steady and thoughtful as he welcomed Daniel, but there was a certain seriousness in his tone. He reminded Daniel that their community valued respect and understanding, and that he must be careful to follow their customs. Daniel promised he would try his best. He explained that his goal was to learn, not to judge or interfere. Elder Nohin studied him for a moment longer before nodding again, as if deciding that Daniel's intentions were sincere. After their conversation, Daniel walked around the village to get a better sense of the place. Life moved slowly here. People carried water in clay pots, cleaned their homes with simple tools, and cooked food over open fires. Everything felt peaceful, almost timeless. He admired how close the community seemed to nature and to each other, but he soon realized how out of place he was. Every time he tried to join in or greet someone, they looked at him with curiosity. Some offered friendly smiles, while others simply watched him from afar. He felt like a visitor from another world. Then, once again, he saw the same 3 girls, Leah, Amara, and Tahia. This time, they were sitting near a small wooden bench, weaving colorful threads into patterned cloth. Their hands moved skillfully, and their laughter flowed easily between them. When Daniel walked past, Amara nudged Leah, and they all looked at him again. Their eyes sparkled with amusement. Daniel tried to speak to them, hoping to show kindness. "Hello," he said in a gentle tone. "My name is Daniel." But the girls exchanged a quick glance, and then Leia answered with a smile. "We know. Everyone knows." Their voices had a playful ring, not unkind but full of mischief. They whispered something to each other, and again suppressed their giggles. Daniel wondered what they found funny, but he didn't want to make anything awkward. He simply nodded and walked away, though he could still hear their soft laughter behind him. He thought to himself that he needed to learn more about the people here. Maybe then he would understand their humor. Later in the day, Daniel joined a small group of villagers who were preparing for an evening gathering. They invited him to watch their traditional ceremony, something that happened only on special days. Daniel felt excited, thankful for the chance to experience something meaningful. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, the villagers gathered around a circular open area. They formed a wide ring, leaving space in the center. Daniel stood quietly at the edge, holding his notebook. He wanted to observe everything carefully without interrupting. The ceremony began with a soft, rhythmic chant. The villagers sang in harmony, their voices rising and falling like waves. The sound was powerful, yet peaceful. Daniel felt moved by the depth of their tradition, but he did not understand the rules. And that unawareness was about to cause trouble. When a group of dancers entered the circle, Daniel stepped forward to get a better look, not realizing that only select members were allowed near the center. The villagers around him gasped softly. Some shook their heads, a few whispered in concern, and from across the circle, Leia, Amara, and Tahia saw what happened. They exchanged surprised looks. They had assumed Daniel knew the basic rules. They hadn't expected him to step into a space meant only for elders and dancers. Before the situation worsened, Elder Nohin raised his hand, signaling the ceremony to pause. The singing stopped. The dancers slowed. The atmosphere grew heavy. Daniel froze, realizing he had done something wrong. His chest tightened. His mind raced. He didn't know what rule he had broken, but the silence around him made it clear that it was serious. Elder Nohin walked toward him with slow, measured steps. His face did not show anger, but it did hold disappointment. "Daniel," he said gently but firmly, "this place is sacred during the ceremony. Only those who carry the responsibility may enter. You must be careful." Daniel felt his heart drop. "I'm very sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't know. I should have asked." Some villagers murmured softly. Their expressions showed mixed feelings, some understanding, some concern, and some frustration. Daniel felt ashamed. He wished he had learned the rules better before coming here. From the side, the three girls watched quietly. They no longer found anything amusing. For the first time since Daniel arrived, their expressions were serious. They realized that their laughter earlier had kept them from explaining things to him. Maybe if they had warned him or guided him, he would not have made this mistake. The ceremony eventually continued, but the mood changed. Daniel stepped far back and watched silently, feeling small and unwelcome. He wanted to fix the situation somehow, but he didn't know how. Later that night, after the ceremony ended, Elder Nohin spoke with the council members. They discussed Daniel's mistake, not with anger, but with concern. They needed to find a way to help him understand their culture better without making him feel pushed away. They believed learning must come with guidance. Elder Nohin finally made a decision that would surprise everyone, especially Daniel and the three girls who had watched everything unfold. What none of them knew was that this mistake would create a bond between Daniel, Leia, Amara, and Tahia that none of them had expected. And this was only the beginning of the story. The next morning, Daniel woke up early, long before the sun rose. He did not sleep well, because the memory of the ceremony kept returning to him again and again. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the quiet disappointment on Elder Nohin's face and the surprised expressions of the villagers watching him. He felt embarrassed, but more than that, he felt worried. He did not want anyone to think he had come to disrespect their way of life. He wanted to learn, not cause trouble. He walked outside his small hut and looked at the sky, slowly turning from dark blue to orange as the sun prepared to rise. The air was cool, and the ground was still cold from the night. He stood quietly, wondering how to make things right. A part of him wanted to hide inside until everything faded away. But he knew that was not possible. He had come here to learn, and learning sometimes brought mistakes. He decided to walk around the village. A few people were already awake, sweeping the ground, feeding animals, or preparing breakfast. Some looked at him for a moment, and then returned to their work. No one seemed angry, but the warmth he felt when he first arrived was not there anymore. The villagers were polite, but distant. Daniel accepted it silently and continued walking, hoping he might find Elder Nohin to talk to him. He wanted to apologize again, properly this time. Not far away, Leia, Amara, and Tahia were gathering water from the well. They were quieter than usual. The laughter that always circled around them had disappeared. They remembered how Daniel had stepped into the sacred circle during the ceremony. They knew it was an accident, but they also knew the elder took traditions very seriously. As they filled their pots, Tahia looked toward Daniel and whispered, "He looks sad." Amara nodded slightly. "Because of what happened yesterday." Leia lowered her eyes, feeling a little guilty. "We should have told him about the rules. He didn't know. We kept laughing instead." The three girls fell silent for a moment. They had not meant to cause trouble, and they certainly never wanted to make anyone uncomfortable. They were just amused by the stranger's unfamiliar ways. Now the situation felt different. Their laughter from the previous day echoed in their minds, and it no longer felt funny. When Daniel walked near them, they did not giggle this time. Instead, they simply watched him pass with quiet curiosity. Daniel gave them a small, polite smile, but did not stop to talk. He did not want to make things awkward or uncomfortable. As the morning went on, the village prepared for a meeting. The elders and council members gathered in a shaded space near the largest hut. People formed a circle around them, whispering about what decision might be made concerning Daniel's mistake. No one wanted to expel him. He had caused no harm, and everyone could see he meant well. But they also believed he needed proper guidance so that such misunderstandings would not happen again. Daniel approached slowly when someone told him the elders were looking for him. His heart pounded as he walked toward the meeting area. He did not know what to expect. He feared they might ask him to leave the village, and the thought made his chest feel tight. He had worked so hard to come here, and he did not want his research or his dream to end because of one mistake. When he stood before Elder Nohin, the elder did not look angry. Instead, he looked thoughtful. The elder studied Daniel's face for several seconds, as if trying to see into his heart. Finally, Elder Nohin spoke in a calm voice. "Daniel, we know you did not intend to break the rule, but this place has traditions that must be respected. Many of our young people learn them from childhood. You are new, and you do not have that knowledge." Daniel swallowed nervously and nodded. "I'm very sorry," he said softly. "I should have asked. I will be more careful. I came here to learn, not to cause any trouble." The elder raised a hand gently. "We understand, but words alone will not help you learn our ways. You must see them, feel them, and live them, even for a short time." Daniel listened closely, unsure what the elder meant. Elder Nohin continued, "The council has decided that you will take part in our responsibility ritual. This ritual was made long ago to help newcomers understand our customs. You will learn directly from people who know the traditions well." The villagers murmured in approval. This decision was fair. It did not punish Daniel but offered him guidance. Daniel felt some relief but also confusion. "What do I need to do?" he asked carefully. The elder looked toward a group of villagers standing nearby. They stepped aside, revealing Leia, Amara, and Tahia. The three young women stood quietly, unsure of what expressions to wear. They had not expected this. Elder Nohin pointed to them and said, "These three will guide you." Daniel blinked in surprise. He had expected older members, maybe teachers or skilled adults. He had not expected the three girls who had laughed at him on his first day. The girls seemed equally surprised. They exchanged wide-eyed glances, and for a moment, the entire village watched them. Finally, Leia cleared her throat and stepped forward slightly. "Elder, are you sure?" she asked politely. Elder Nohin nodded. "You are young, but you understand our traditions well. You are patient and clever, and you were the first to observe him closely when he arrived." The elder paused and added meaningfully, "Perhaps this is a chance for all of you to learn something." The girls lowered their eyes respectfully. When the elder made a decision, it was not questioned. Daniel felt embarrassed again, but this time for a different reason. The idea of being guided by three young women made him feel awkward, especially since they had laughed at him before. But he did not want to disrespect the elder's choice. "I will do my best," Daniel said gently, bowing his head. Leia, Amara, and Tahia stepped toward him. For a moment, none of them knew what to say. The air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, Amara broke the silence. "We will teach you," she said in a soft voice that sounded kinder than the day before. "But you must listen carefully." Daniel nodded quickly. "Of course," he said, trying to sound confident. The villagers slowly returned to their daily work, leaving Daniel and the three girls standing in a small circle. The moment felt slightly uncomfortable, but not unpleasant. It was simply new for all of them. Leia folded her arms gently across her chest and studied Daniel. "First rule," she said simply, "never step into the sacred space unless you are invited. It is for certain people only." Daniel nodded. "I understand now." He felt grateful that she spoke without mocking him. Tahia pointed toward a group of older men carving wood under a tree. "Those men make the ceremonial tools. You must learn how they work," Amara added. "And you should learn about our daily customs too. How we live, how we talk to our elders, how we follow our traditions." Daniel felt a sense of determination growing within him. He wanted to show them that he truly respected their culture. The rest of the day passed with the girls guiding him through small tasks. They taught him how to greet elders properly, how to carry water without spilling it, and even how to walk lightly during important rituals. They explained every rule with patience, and slowly, the distance between them began to shrink. There were still small moments when the girls giggled. Daniel was still unfamiliar with many things, but the laughter was different now. It was no longer teasing. It was warm, natural, and friendly. At one point, Daniel slipped while carrying a pot of water, and Tahia burst into laughter. Daniel almost felt embarrassed, but then Leia stepped forward, smiling, and said, "It took us years to learn. It's okay." Daniel smiled back, feeling a bit more comfortable than before. By the time the sun set, he felt exhausted but also proud. He had learned many things in just one day. More importantly, he had started forming a strange, unexpected connection with the three girls. They were no longer the mysterious figures who laughed at him. They were becoming teachers, guides, and possibly even friends. But he didn't know that the real challenge and the real bond was still ahead. What began as a misunderstanding was slowly turning into something none of them had imagined. The next few days moved slowly but meaningfully for Daniel. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise, preparing himself for another day of learning from Leia, Amara, and Tahia. He knew he had made a mistake during the ceremony, but now he felt grateful for the chance to understand the community's traditions more deeply. What began as punishment now felt like a journey, and he was surprised by how much he was enjoying it. On the fourth morning, the girls met him near the well. This time, instead of watching him from a distance or giggling, they greeted him with open, honest smiles. Their attitude had changed completely. They were no longer amused by his awkwardness. Instead, they took their role seriously and treated him like one of their own. Leia handed him a woven basket filled with dried fruits. "Come with us," she said. "Today we will show you something special." Daniel followed them through a narrow path lined with desert shrubs. The sun was bright, but the wind was cool. Amara walked ahead, humming softly, while Tahia carried a clay pot of water on her head with perfect balance. Daniel admired her ability and tried to carry a smaller pot himself, though he struggled to keep it steady. The girls noticed but said nothing. Their silence was not judgmental, it was patient. They understood he was trying. After some time, they reached a quiet corner of the village, where a group of older women sat in a circle. Their hands moved swiftly as they worked on colorful patterns made from threads. Their eyes were gentle but observant. "This is where our stories live," Leia whispered to Daniel. "Every design means something." Amara pointed at the cloth with a zigzag pattern. "This one tells the story of our ancestors traveling across rivers." Then she showed him another piece with curved lines. "This one means unity. It is used in celebrations," Tahia added softly. "These are not just decorations. They are memories." Daniel listened carefully. He felt honored to be allowed into this space. One of the older women smiled at him and handed him a small piece of cloth. The threads were bright red and golden. He held it gently, feeling its texture and thinking about the story it represented. The woman spoke in a slow, calm voice, and Leia translated. She says, "Every thread is a moment of life. When you are patient, the threads become beautiful." Daniel nodded respectfully. He felt something inside him shift. He was beginning to see the world through their eyes, piece by piece. After the visit, the girls led Daniel to an open area near the riverbank. The water was shallow and clear, reflecting the sky. Children played nearby, laughing as they splashed water at each other. The sound brought a smile to Daniel's face. Tahia sat on a rock and dipped her hands into the river. "This place is important to us," she said quietly. "Many of our traditions began here," Amara added. "Our elders say water remembers everything. It carries stories from the past to the future." Daniel sat beside them, listening with interest. He realized how deeply connected the community was to nature. Everything had meaning: water, sand, wind, even silence. As they talked, Leia began teaching him the correct way to greet elders during special events. Daniel repeated her instructions several times, trying to remember every detail. Sometimes he got it wrong, and the girls laughed gently, not to mock him, but to encourage him. Their laughter now felt warm, like a friend's support. Later that afternoon, Elder Nohin called for Daniel. The girls followed him as he approached the elder's hut. Inside, the air was cool, and the soft smell of herbs filled the room. Elder Nohin studied Daniel for a moment before speaking. "You have been learning well," he said. "But there is more you must understand." Daniel straightened his shoulders. "I am ready," he replied with sincerity. The elder motioned toward the three girls. "These young women guide you, but they also learn from you," he said. "When you understand each other, respect grows like a strong tree." Leia, Amara, and Tahia stood quietly behind Daniel, listening. Elder Nohin continued, "Tomorrow, you will begin the deeper part of the responsibility ritual. You will work closely with these three, not only to observe, but to live our ways." Daniel felt a sudden nervousness. He did not know what the deeper part meant, but he trusted the elder. He nodded. The next morning, the more serious lessons began. The girls took him across different parts of the village, showing him tasks that required patience and care. They taught him how to grind grains into flour using heavy stones. It was harder than it looked, and Daniel's hands soon grew tired. But he continued, determined not to disappoint them. While he worked, the girls exchanged small smiles. They admired his effort. Many people from outside would quit easily, but Daniel kept going. Later, they led him to a shaded area where men were carving wooden pieces for future ceremonies. Daniel was allowed to watch from a respectful distance. One of the craftsmen explained the meaning behind each carving, how every curve represented a belief and how every line held history. As the sun climbed higher, the heat became intense. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead, but he refused to rest until the girls insisted. "You will faint if you keep going like this," Amara said with a laugh. Daniel chuckled breathlessly. "I just want to do my best." Leia handed him a cup of cool water. Doing your best also means knowing when to rest, she said gently. Daniel accepted the cup gratefully. In those small moments, he felt the bond between them growing stronger. That evening, the four of them sat under a tall tree. The sky turned golden as the sun set. Birds chirped softly in the branches. Tahia broke the silence. "We were wrong the first day," she said quietly. "We laughed too much. We thought you knew everything. But we didn't realize you needed help." Daniel looked at her with surprise. "You don't need to apologize," he said. "If I were in your place, maybe I would laugh too." Amara smiled. "Maybe," she said. "But now we understand you more." Daniel felt touched by their honesty. "And I understand you too," he said. "I respect your traditions more than ever. Thank you for teaching me." A gentle breeze passed through, carrying the scent of the desert flowers. Leia leaned back against the tree trunk and looked toward the village lights flickering from afar. "The elder says understanding is more important than anything," she said softly. "When people understand each other, friendship grows." Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Over the next few days, they continued their lessons. They walked long distances, explored old paths, and visited places that held memories of the past. The girls told him stories about their childhood, their dreams, and their hopes for the future. Daniel listened with interest, feeling as though he had become part of their world. He also shared stories from his own life, how he grew up in a busy city with tall buildings and constant noise, how his mother encouraged him to study history, and how he had always dreamed of learning about different cultures. The girls listened with curiosity, imagining a life so different from their own. During one lesson, Leia taught him how to read tracks on the sand, how to tell the difference between the steps of a bird, a small animal, or a wandering child. Daniel admired her skill and tried to imitate it, but often guessed wrong, causing the girls to laugh. This time, the laughter was warm, not mocking. It made him feel included. One afternoon, a small group of children approached them. They were fascinated by Daniel and asked him many questions. The girls watched as Daniel patiently answered each child. Seeing his kindness made their respect for him grow even more. By now, the villagers also noticed the change. They saw how hard-working Daniel was, how polite he had become, and how he listened carefully to every instruction. Their expressions became friendlier, and many began greeting him warmly. Everything seemed to be going well until one evening, Elder Noan called a private meeting. He sat with Daniel and the three girls under the same tree where they had talked before. His face was thoughtful. "You have all learned much from each other," he began. "But the most important part of the responsibility, ritual, remains." Daniel leaned forward, nervous and curious. The elder looked at all four of them carefully before speaking again. "Tomorrow, you will face a test that requires trust, patience, and unity. It will show whether you truly understand our ways and whether your bond is strong." Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken. The girls exchanged curious glances. Elder Nohan's eyes softened. "This test will not be easy, but I believe you are ready." And with that, the elder stood up and walked away slowly, leaving Daniel and the girls sitting under the darkening sky, wondering what the next day would bring. Little did they know, the deepest part of their journey was just beginning. Their connection would be tested in a way they never imagined, and the lessons they learned would stay with them forever. Life in the Apache camp began to change slowly after the big council meeting. The white traveler, Daniel, had stayed longer than he ever planned, but every day he felt less like an outsider. The three Apache girls, Aponi, Luyu, and Salalai, who once laughed at him, were now among the closest people in his life. Their laughter had not disappeared, but it had changed. Instead of teasing him, they laughed with him, teaching him their language, their jokes, and their small everyday traditions. Weeks passed, and the misunderstanding about marriage became something everyone joked about lightly. The tribe leader, Chief Taza, had explained many times that his earlier statement was not an order. It was meant as a symbolic gesture to show unity between cultures. In fact, He made sure Daniel knew that no one in the tribe could ever be forced into anything against their will. Respect and freedom were deeply valued. The more Daniel lived among them, the more he observed the strong values of the community: kindness, hospitality, courage, and unity. He realized how different these true values were from the stories he had heard back in town, where outsiders often misunderstood or misrepresented the Apache people. Daniel grew comfortable waking up to the early sounds of the camp, the gentle talk of elders, the soft drumming from the far side, the murmur of the river nearby. Every morning, he found Apache practicing her bow, Luyu gathering herbs, and Salalai preparing firewood. They included him in everything, and he felt honored. One evening, a new issue arose that required the whole community's attention. A group from a nearby settlement planned to pass through the Apache land, and there were worries about another misunderstanding. The memory of Daniel's arrival was still fresh, and the tribe wanted to avoid unnecessary conflict. Chief Taza called a larger council this time, inviting elders, hunters, mothers, and even the young people. Daniel was surprised to be welcomed into the circle. He felt nervous but grateful. Apache sat next to him and whispered, "You are part of the discussion now. You have earned that place." Daniel smiled, humbled by her words. Chief Taza opened the circle with calm authority. "We must show them," he said, "that we want peace, not conflict. Daniel understands their ways better than we do. Perhaps he can guide us." All eyes turned to him. Daniel took a slow breath, feeling the weight of responsibility. He explained how misunderstandings often happened when people came from different cultures. He told them that many settlers had heard untrue stories, just as he once had. "If we greet them with respect and clarity," he said, "we can avoid trouble." Luyu nodded. "We can prepare signs along the path," she suggested. "Symbols that show welcome," Salalai added, "and we can offer water. Travelers always appreciate water." The discussion carried on for hours, with voices rising and settling like a calm river. By the end, a plan was formed. Daniel would meet the travelers first, acting as a bridge between the two cultures, and the three girls would help prepare a welcoming area near the river. The next morning, the entire community came together to set things in motion. Children collected small stones to place around the path. Hunters cleared branches to make the trail neat. Apache carved a sign with a symbol of open hands, meaning peace and friendship. Luyu gathered fresh herbs to hang near the resting spot so the place would smell welcoming. Salalai arranged the fire pit and prepared tea in case the travelers wanted to pause. Daniel watched all of this with awe. He realized that their unity, cooperation, and warmth were far stronger than any fear outsiders might carry. By late afternoon, the group of travelers finally arrived. Daniel stepped forward, calm but cautious. The travelers looked surprised to see him there. "Are you alone?" one of them asked. "No," Daniel smiled. "But the people here want peace. They want you to pass safely." The travelers were relieved. They accepted the water and tea offered by the Apache girls, and for a while, both groups stood together in quiet curiosity. The girls greeted them politely, and the travelers thanked them with genuine gratitude. For a moment, Daniel felt as if he was witnessing something rare, two worlds that often misunderstood each other now standing together without fear. When the travelers left, they promised to speak kindly of the Apache people when they reached their towns. That moment was small, but it felt like the beginning of a brighter future. That evening, the entire tribe celebrated. A gentle fire burned in the center of the camp, and everyone gathered around. The elders sang traditional songs, sharing stories of harmony and courage. Daniel sat with the three girls, feeling more connected to them than he ever expected. Apache handed him a small handmade bracelet. "This is not a promise or a bond," she explained softly. "It is simply a gift of friendship. You are part of our story now." Daniel took it with heartfelt gratitude. "I will wear it with respect," he replied. Chief Taza approached them with a warm smile. "Today," he said, "you showed what unity can achieve. This tribe is stronger because of understanding, not fear." The night grew lively with songs, dancing, and storytelling. The firelight flickered on every face, creating a soft glow of togetherness. Daniel listened to the drums, feeling the rhythm deep in his chest. As the celebration continued, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. He had arrived scared, confused, and completely unfamiliar with their ways. The laughter of the three girls had once embarrassed him, but now he understood the warmth behind it. They had become his teachers, guiding him patiently into their world. In return, he had shared what he knew, helping build a small bridge between cultures. There were no forced marriages, no unwanted commitments, nothing uncomfortable or disrespectful. Instead, there was mutual respect, shared experiences, and a bond formed through understanding. Later that night, when the fire had cooled and the stars spread across the sky like silver dust, Daniel sat quietly beside the river. Aponi, Luyu, and Salalai joined him. Salalai broke the silence. "You came to this land as a stranger," she said. "But now you are family." Salalai. "But now you are family." Daniel felt emotion rise in his chest. "I never expected to find a home here," he admitted. "But I think this place has changed me." "It has changed us too," Luyu added gently. "We learned from you just as you learned from us." The four of them sat together, listening to the water. The night was peaceful, the breeze soft. Daniel looked up at the stars and felt something deep inside: gratitude, belonging, and the realization that true connection happens when hearts meet without fear. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between Daniel and the Apache community only grew stronger. He continued helping them, teaching them small skills he knew, learning their ways with respect, and whenever the three girls laughed, Daniel laughed too, not out of confusion, but out of shared happiness. The story that had begun with laughter now ended with friendship, not forced, not feared, but freely chosen. And in the Apache camp, Daniel found something he never expected: a place where he belonged, and people who accepted him as one of their own.